Hello all and welcome to a brand new format of video here at Craftmania. We've decided to upload some videos to our YouTube channel, basically just focusing on some of the constructionary cards and projects I bring you. And instead of sort of talking about decorating them and all the products I've used to do so, we're just going to strip it right back to basics, talk about the bare bones of the project and show you how you can construct them. Obviously I've got a couple of examples and I'll talk to you a little bit more about how I've chose to decorate mine and the bits I've done with them, but this really is about showing you in essence the bare bones of the project so that you can take this idea, put your own stamp on it and work with it. Now we're doing these for our YouTube channel, which of course is Crafting with Jamie Rodgers and Craftmania, and if you haven't already popped on there and subscribed so you get notifications of these videos, please do. I believe you have to subscribe and hit the bell, so they tell me, and then that way you'll be notified when we add these videos to our channel. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be looking at one of our collapsible cards. Now these are something I've done a couple of versions of these over the years, but this is the first time I've sort of gone for the double acetate effect of what we've got on these ones. I've got two very different examples to share with you. If you like, this one is sort of the hard work version. It's stamping our own papers, it's painting them with pixie powders, it's decorating them very much in the same way as the other version, but it's a bit more of a faff to make our paper or our backgrounds. Absolutely fine, I love doing that too, you're not alone. Not everyone does. Some of us just like paper pads and easy crafting, and there is nothing wrong with that either. So I also have this card over this side, which is using one of our paper pads that you'll find on the Craftmania website or in store. It's one of our lovely Christmas designs. So it's more trying to show you how you can fit this style of project into whatever type of crafting it is that you like to do. Now the actual card, I'm going to show you this just in a bit more detail. It actually collapses down. So you can literally push it down and you can post it completely flat. So as we show you as we were sort of hovering over it, it does stand as a completely 3D object. It does give you a bit of depth in here to do different bits with it, but when you need to, you can literally pop it down flat and pop it in an envelope. Now obviously it stands as a square, and when we collapse it, it does go to a rectangle, so you do need to bear that in mind for your box or for your envelopes. And of course sizing is all down to you. So we're going to talk a little bit about what I've done and how I've created mine, and I'll talk you through a couple of the options when we come to constructing it. But to begin with, what we need are our panels. So we're going to work on a back panel. Now this is literally the back panel, the bit at the back of the card that's going to hold it together. So this is one of your first options, and this is really going to set out the proportions of your project. So I've started by just cutting a square that's 7 by 7, so 7 inches by 7 inches, so a perfect square. I've then noticed or know that I need 2 acetate pieces. So each of my levels are going to be built with acetate going through them. Now I don't have to do this. We could have used shorter card and steps along the way if we prefer. But for this I'm going to go for 2 acetate pieces. So these again I've chose for mine to be exactly the same size. We'll talk more about them options when we come to constructing it. But I have them pieces already, 7 by 7. We're now going to talk about your 4 pillars. Now we have the 4 pillars that actually construct this project. So for this, you're going to need a piece of card which is 5 inches wide by 7 inches long. So it's the same height obviously as our back panel and our acetate panels, but of course slightly thinner. And we're going to score this on a scoreboard. Now I'm actually using a centimetre scoreboard. So if you wish to, if you're somebody who prefers to work in centimetres, then obviously you want the height to be the same as the back panel you choose to use, which in my case is around 18 centimetres. And then width wise, you just want your measurement to be dividable by 5. So to keep it as close to my 5 inches as such, I've gone for 12.5 centimetres. And all we're going to do is score this at 5 equal increments. So I'm going to go for 2.5 centimetres, 5, 7.5 and 10. Now obviously if we had gone for the inches, we would score at 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch and 4 inch, and we would end up in the same place, just slightly wider. When we take that off, we have our scores obviously in place ready. We're just going to use a bone folder to go across our lines. So we're going to fold in on every single one of them crease lines and going across this. Now it is a really good idea at this stage to, we call it burnishing, but you're going to go over the line and you're going to break that line in so that that's nice and ready for us to use. We want that line to be flexible, we don't want it to be too rigid. So now we have our 5 pieces scored, or our 5 panels of this piece scored. Just going to work that the other way, just breaking them in slightly as I go. We're now going to glue this into a tube. So for this, all I'm going to do is bring in one of my sides, and I'm going to use some wet glue for this. I'm going to use the Cosmic Shimmer Dries Clear Glue, because this is a really lovely glue to work with. It dries clear, so I don't have to worry about any excess coming out the sides. It's also a really strong glue. If you prefer for construction, I know a lot of people like red liner tape, that's fine as well, whatever medium you like to work with. Now, because I want my tube to be perfectly level, the easiest way to do this is if we bring over the next 2 sections and just squidge that down flat. Now what we've done is we've kept our panel square, but we've also adhered it to that 5th strip of our tube. So when this is dry, we can now see that it works both ways, and it will continue to open and close as our tube needs to. And we have a really strong, ready to construct piece now that can be worked with. So already I've jumped ahead and I've got a few of these set off to one side and ready to go. So I have my 4, because we need 4 for this, and I'm going to again bring in my Cosmic Shimmer glue. And I'm going to pop this down the panel. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to be working on our back panel here. Now, I've stuck mine to being a square design because I quite like the idea of it being a square. You, of course, don't have to. This could be a lot taller or a lot wider if you prefer. Just make sure that your back panel and your acetates or any pieces that you wish to put in the middle are exactly the same, obviously, and it will give you the freedom to be more creative if you wish to be. I'm then going to take my next pillar, and I'm going to do exactly the same again. So Cosmic Shimmer glue on here, and we're going to bring this in and we're going to put it to the edge. So we're again on that side piece, and we're going to build that up. So as you can see, we have our 2 pieces in place. What we're then going to do is bring in some glue. We're going to pop this again on top of our pillar. And we're going to do exactly the same with the other side as well. I'm going to go for this. Popping more glue in place, and we're going to bring in our piece of acetate. Now the acetate is going to go right the way to the edges. Bearing in mind this is the same 7 inches by 7 inches as the base panel. We know we can pop that onto our first pillar, and then we can bring it on and pop it onto the next one. Now we want to make sure this is square as we go round and through the levels, so just make sure that your acetate isn't overhanging the edge of your pillar at either side or at the base or the top. Being a clear transparent plastic, obviously it can be a bit more difficult to see, but it's really important that we keep this as square and as level as we can get to it. Now when I actually started this card, why this set's just a second, I'm going to talk you through why I actually started this. I had an idea, I haven't even got to do it yet, but I had an idea of taking 2 acetate panels and sort of popping flower die cuts and bits in the middle of them and putting them between the acetate, a bit like pressed flowers would look. And that's sort of where the concept of this card started. I haven't done that yet, but there's no reason why you couldn't. So if you wanted to, you could just keep like a solid background colour to your back panel, and then we could do some sort of pressed flower images in the middle between our acetates to really build them up. Equally, you don't have to put acetate on here if you don't want to. I made a version of this last year, slightly larger to be fair, and I believe you can find instructions for that on our blog on the Craftmania website, but slightly larger, and decorated it with polar bears and penguins and bits like that. It's the same concept, just slightly different measurements. So you can really play about with that if you want to. I'm going to bring in my next pillar, by the way, and I'm going to do exactly the same again. I'm going to pop some glue across the base of this one, and we're going to pop this one directly on top of that one. Now it is worth mentioning at this stage that if you look at my 2 finished examples, I'm going to glue the other one on and then I'll show you what I mean, but if you want to bring anything coming out from the acetate on the sides here, if you want to bring in any depth, any flourishes, any twiddles, any bits like that, it's a good idea to stick them on now so that your pillar covers up the join. If we had to put them in place now, then nobody's going to see them edges. So again, another glued pillar, and we're going to pop that on top of the other side. Again, making sure that everything is level. And it's a good idea when you're doing this as well, that every now and again, when bits are settled and you think they're dry, just make sure it collapses. Just give it a good push. Make sure that everything's settled where you need it to be. because the last thing you want to do is build the whole thing and then find you've put on one of your panels or pillars slightly wonky, and it will affect how your actual construction collapses to put it into your envelope. So I'm going to bring this card in just to show you them twiddles I was on about. So if we have a little look, if I point to these actually, if we can see our twiddles here, our little flourishes coming in, these ones are all tucked underneath that pillar. And the same on the other side as well. It just means that we don't have to see the ends of them. We can be a bit more dramatic in our placement. Things can actually overlap under the pillars if we want them to. And nobody can see that bit. It's just coming out across the acetate, which I think is quite a nice way to decorate them with. We had, funny enough, when I made this, we've got a lovely Christmas lights die. Literally, you've got like the strings and then you've got all the separate lights. And I did think about doing a version and putting the lights going across the top of the acetate, sort of dangling down in the middle, because obviously where they're on acetate, all you're going to see is that string and the lights hang. So you're really going to be able to play around with these for your different formats, your different feelings, different styles and occasions you're working on. I also thought balloons flying in the air on the back sort of levels of the acetate could look really nice for birthday cards. So it's one of them I'm hoping you're going to have lots of fun playing around with. We're then going to do exactly the same again. We're going to bring in our Cosmic Shimmer glue and we're going to pop this onto both of our pillars on each side. And then we're going to bring in our last piece of acetate and we're going to lay this on the top. Again, we're going to make sure that that's square on both sides. And we're just going to leave this to dry. So on both of my creations, I've decided to stop at 2 levels because of course there's no reason why we couldn't go for further levels. There's no reason why you can't shrink your pillars down. So if you wanted to, these pillars could literally step down in height, meaning that you could have more of a cascading effect, whether they be all acetate panels between them, or if you broke off and did some card ones. Again, the options are all open for you to play around with how you want to decorate them. So just bear that in mind. I've also, on the front of both of mine, I didn't want to see the acetate piece, so I've put on a card front as well. So I've literally cut a piece of card, same colour as my pillar, so in this case for the card I'm making at the moment, coconut white, and I've cut them to be the same width as the pillar, same length as the pillar, and just popped them on the top, so roughly 1 inch by 7 inches, depending on if you go by inches or centimetres. But for this, 1 inch wide, 7 inches long, and popped on top of both sides. It will just cover up your acetate and your glue, and it just finishes it off slightly. Obviously, you're also going to notice when we look at my ones, I've also chose to decorate on the insides or the outsides of the pillars as well. So that's something that's quite nice. And I've also found if you wish to, decorating inside the pillars on the back pieces means that when you look directly at the card front on, you don't just see the whites of the insiders of the pillars. I haven't bothered to do my sides or of course the back panels of them, but you can do if you want to. It just depends on the purpose and what you're going to do with your creation once you've finished, to how much you wish to put into this. So now hopefully we're starting to get to the point where this is dry and I can show you your closing. So literally all we're going to do is, if you wish to pop it into an envelope, you literally just go to one side and push down on it. And then we can bring this back up, form our tubes. And it's a good idea to do this a couple of times before you send it out, so that you know your recipient is going to know how to do this, and it's sort of going to free flow and go in the direction you need it to. But it's ever so easy. You can even go out in the middle and in at the top, which will give you a little less room. So it's up to you how you wish to box it and send it. I tend to just go straight across because I think it's easier, which of course expands the edge out by 2 inches. So bear that in mind when you do come to make your boxes or your envelopes. Now I hope that's really given you a bit of direction on how you can create these. And I'm hopeful that we've given you a few ideas of different versions you could do with them as well. Obviously, as I mentioned, we have our paper decorated version, we have our stamped version. There are so many ways you could play around with these. I've already seen somebody create one and done lots of embossing folder panels on them instead, and that looked amazing. So I really think there's a lot of scope for you to be able to play around with these. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this is our very first one of our constructional videos on the Crafting with Jamie Rodgers and Craftmania YouTube channel, but we are hoping to bring you this style of video quite regularly, and we're going to be discussing and showing you quite a few different constructional sort of plans and card constructions in the coming weeks, in the hope that it inspires you a little. Now, what we would love to see is you share your creations with us. We want to inspire you and we want you to inspire us. So if you don't mind terribly, we would love it if you would join our Facebook group. We have an exclusive, what's the right words? Private, that's the one. Private group that you can join. We just ask you a couple of questions and nothing too taxing, no bank details or anything, just about what your crafting style is and the brands you like, bits like that. And we just ask you to agree to our rules, which are all there for you to read, and then you can join our group. It's free of charge completely, and the whole idea is that it gives you the chance to share your creations with us and help inspire us. You can find that on Facebook, and you're just going to pop onto the little bar at the top and you're going to search for Create with Craftmania and Jamie Rodgers, and it will appear, and then you can join. And we would love to see you join that group, and we would love to see your versions of this card shared in there. If you're looking for more inspiration, do check out the website and make sure you hit up the blog that's on our website. And our website is www.craftmaniacrafts.com. Thank you very much for watching today. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.